Hello friends, I'm the Otter. Today we're going to replace the exhaust manifold on a 4-cylinder Toyota truck. You're going to get that bolt on with the heat shield on, so I got to remove the heat shield first. So there is one benefit of buying Dorman aftermarket parts. They usually give you quite a bit of extra stuff. If you bought this from Toyota, you're just getting an exhaust manifold. You're not going to get exhaust gaskets, spare studs, EGR stud, and a couple new nuts. But you want to keep as much of it Toyota as you can keep. So first step, we're going to remove the air intake pipe. There's just a couple bolts and screws. If your car is not a hack job, there's a couple nuts on the bottom of here on these older 3RZs that hold the intake pipe in place. So this truck's been hacked apart and those are missing on mine, so it's very easy. So here's our exhaust manifold log. It must be semi-common since there's so many parts available, but there is a massive crack right here. It's kind of hard to show you, but someone's already been in there and welded it, and then it re-cracked through the weld. So I guess that's the weak point on these exhaust manifolds. 100% you need to remove the wheels to do this job because we are going to be coming in from the side. We got 1, 2, 3. And if some hack has worked on your car, you're only going to have one nut to take off. The car is up on jack stands. We got the bottom disconnected. So here's a problem. Basically the car is too tall. It's a 4-wheel drive truck. So what we're gonna do is basically tilt the front down so you can reach down and get more leverage and make your life easier. There's two 12mm nuts holding this exhaust manifold on, and these are never fun. With a couple different 12mm 1/4-inch ratchets, and pray that that nut is not frozen. Not all of these 4-cylinder engines have an EGR pipe, but if you do have one, it's a shallow 12mm 1/4-inch ratchet to get both these nuts off. If that nut is frozen, torch it, try it, and you may need to cut the pipe off and replace it. Removing the actual exhaust manifold bolts is super easy. You don't even need a wobbly. So Toyota studs aren't famous for breaking, but you may need to replace some studs, and I will cover that here shortly. It may appear a victory that we got all the bolts out without torching and breaking anything, but now the hard part begins. So we need to act like water. We need to go to the path of the least resistance to get this manifold out. So these are the studs that go into the cylinder head, and on the end of the stud, it's called an E-torque. So it is definitely like kind of a specialty socket set. And if we can get all the studs out of the cylinder head, then we can slide the manifold kind of where we want to go with it. So oftentimes these EGR ones are very challenging, and that's the way to remove those EGR pipes. But basically you just gotta give it a shot. Like, try to remove these. If these are frozen, we'll go to the next step. So I got very lucky and all the exhaust studs came out of the cylinder head. So now it's just a game of wiggling and what else we need to disconnect. So we got the old exhaust manifold on the table. So there is a whole bunch of transferring of studs and stuff onto the new manifold to make this work. So inside the Dorman kit does come with a new exhaust gasket and new 2 donut crush washers, which is pretty important. So I'm definitely gonna have to order a couple of studs because everything is snapped off on the original. So inside the Dorman kit, it comes with a couple of exhaust studs. So I'm like, yeah, for sure. Let's put the 2 that come in there, and I'm like, they don't thread in. So you don't want to force it, and the Dorman studs are just standard studs with no E-torques on the back, so you need another special tool to install the Dorman studs. And I have like a tap and die set out, a thread identifier, and I'm like, why won't it thread into the new exhaust manifold? So this is a super handy tool to have. It's a thread pitch identifier. So check this out. So inside the Dorman manifold, you instantly have to order 3 studs here to thread this in. So we gotta go on Amazon and look for those, or the local parts store. Whenever you're dealing with aftermarket parts, this is not abnormal. Basically having to modify, tweak things, and order some extra parts. So I gotta go on Amazon and try to find some 10 by 1.5 thread studs for the bottom of this exhaust manifold before it goes back on the car. So this is the EGR stud. I actually have to order one of these. So a few days later, I discovered basically I need to rebuild the entire engine, so don't mind the cylinder head on the table. But it's a good idea to fit all the parts on the bench before installing the new exhaust manifold. So you need this stud kit from Dorman. So the length on this is 62 millimeters, which is ridiculously long compared to the OEM one. So you're going to save a lot of money using Dorman stuff, but quality, reliability is not going to be as good. This is the cheapest stud installer I could find on the internet. Link to the description. It works halfway decent. Now it's not going to have a lot of clearance, so you're not going to get it into tight places, but it does the job well. So I'm test fitting the 62 millimeter new log exhaust manifold studs before putting the final torque on them. So here's the damaged EGR stud. So it's a good idea to put studs back in where studs went, not just putting a bolt on it, because usually the bolt will fall out and your long-term repair won't be very good. So what I'm going to try to do is re-tap the EGR stud that does have a damaged tip. So it is an 8x125, and if you have one of these tap and die sets, let's see if it works. Running through this with some hand torque to make sure things get good and tight, because we do not want exhaust leaks inside of the engine bay. So after everything is test fitted with these rubbish aftermarket parts, we now need to do a good repair and remove all the studs and add anti-seize so the next sorry guy who works on this doesn't have broken studs. The Amazon tool was pretty impressive considering its price tag, so if you need a small access, like basically a compact tool, it's going to be substantially more expensive. I did link the Dorman and the exhaust manifold in the description if you have a 2.4 or 2.7 liter old school Tacoma. So continuing on with the test fit, we got Dorman crush washers, and it looks like they're going to fit. Inside of the Dorman kit, it comes with like 2 or 3 extra studs. So I do need one going into the cylinder head. So the studs it comes with are the correct thread. They're not necessarily the correct stud compared to the OEM one, but these will work inside of the cylinder head. Now this is a long series of videos restoring on a budget a 97 Toyota 4Runner, so that playlist is on your screen.